You're listening to Never Heard of It, a Night Shift Radio production.
At our good friend John's suggestion, started watching the Harley Quinn animated series.
Oh, right.
When that was originally part of the DC Universe Originals, or whatever it was, when they had their own streaming series.
Before it became just HBO Max. Yeah.
Yes. And it's delightful.
Is it? I've heard good things, but I haven't watched it.
It's extremely vulgar. It's extremely violent. And it's just a thrill ride of comedy. And you might be able to hear Penelope freaking out in the background. That's what that is. But no, we've already, I think, almost halfway through the second season after just like a few nights of watching, because it's just that good.
That's awesome.
And of course, the Bane character, while he's visualized more like the old, like the comics and like the old animated series version of Bane with the lucha mask and the venom tubes and whatnot, the voice is very much a riff on Tom Hardy's Bane.
That's great.
I'll blow up this bar mitzvah. He's always sulking and wanting to blow things up.
That's spectacular.
We'll see whose name is Bang now, Todd.
That is what. Yeah, I didn't watch. Only because I didn't subscribe to it, but I didn't watch any of those like DC series. Like I didn't watch Teen Titans or anything. Like I didn't watch Swamp Thing or what was the other one? Like Stargirl. I did watch Stargirl on the CW, and it was fucking terrible.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
I wanted so much more out of the Arrowverse and the CW shows in general, because a lot of the better, like, smaller characters like made their appearance in that TV universe, but the shows just weren't good. Like, I love the character of the Flash. Love the Flash. The show is all right. I think
it got worse. I mean, it's not bad now. It's just not as good as it was 3 seasons ago, let's say.
It's very slow moving, and it's the CW, so it's way too much drama. And like, it's just, like, even for comic books, this is way too much drama. Like the 90s X-Men cartoon had less drama than this. Like, let's dial it back a little bit.
The first 2 episodes are just Wolverine going, Gene, for like 2 or 3 episodes. Like
staring longingly at the photo.
Gene. I need you too.
And the moment when, like, Storm loses her powers, like, my powers!
Right.
But yeah, like, Green Arrow, like, definitely works a lot better on the small screen, and like season 1 into season 2, where it's basically like a rehashing of Batman Begins. Like, Stephen Amell does a great job in that role. It's fun, and even like when they bring in the character of Deathstroke, and like there are some great moments. It gets a little bit bizarre with the love triangle with the sisters, and then there's like the Black Canary and the White Canary, and I can't fucking keep track. And then one of them goes off and joins the fucking weird ass Legends of Tomorrow, which like should have been a lot more fun than it was. Like that cast just fucking goofy. But again, I don't know. Anyway, the whole thing goes off the rails, and so like I struggle with, like, I wanted to watch all of it. Like, I wanted to be like, this is a universe that I can get into. It's very small scale, cool DC characters coming in and out. No. But yeah, like, as much as I love the DC animated like features that they've released over the last several years, I didn't care enough to subscribe to another streaming service just for that. But when I found out that it was part of HBO Max, which I had, like, let's be honest, just because of His Dark Materials,
right.
Like, there are very few single properties that will get me to pay for a subscription service solely for those. But somehow, like, CBS did it with Star Trek. and HBO did it with his Dark Materials, and when it finally comes out, like 9 years later, Apple will get me with Foundation, and it makes me angry. But you know what? Here we are. This is the life that we live now.
Yeah, my biggest complaint about the CW Arrowverse is that they started this really great trend of connecting all the shows. Like they started slowly like bringing them in, and they even had this really big moment where they were like, all the Earths are combined now. So like Supergirl and the Flash and Arrow, whatever's left of it, and Legends of Tomorrow, and all this is like everything exists on one Earth now. Everybody is the same Earth, and then they started adding in Stargirl, which just does not fucking care that any of this stuff exists. And then they reference like the Teen Titans, from the Titans show, and I'm like, but there's only one Earth, but you literally never, like, they're not like part, like, it just, DC's fucking terrible at continuity between films. Like they can't. And you know what? They just need to say like, no, just fucking enjoy this story and just don't acknowledge that anything else, whatever, every time you turn on any DC property, just be like, hey, I'm only here to watch the Teen Titans. Yes, Supergirl exists and references them. Yes, Arrow exists. Yes, this exists. Yes, fucking the actual films exist that reference it. Like, the Flash from Justice League, the movies, was in Flash, the show. Like, there was a moment where he, Ezra comes on and he was like, what's going on? And Barry's like, I'm the Flash. What? And actually, they even do a thing where he was like, who are you? And he was like, well, I'm Barry Allen. He's like, no, I'm Barry Allen. And he's like, well, I'm the Flash. And he's like, the Flash. So Barry Allen from CW Flash gave the idea to Barry Allen Justice League Flash to call himself the Flash. Like, that's canon. That's movie canon. And like, it's just a mess. It's just a fucked up mess, and it sucks.
Well, and like the day that this episode drops will be the day that the Justice League Snyder Cut launches finally for the world to see. Whether you care about that or not.
All 4 hours of it.
Yeah. So I just read a really interesting thing earlier today, talking about how one that it was a reward for some like fairly toxic fandom that kind of legitimizes their efforts, and like that's a whole thing in and of itself that we don't have time to get into. But on the other side of that is that DC had started with this idea, we're going to do this whole like extended universe, and it's going to be great, and then 2 movies in, they're like, wow, this isn't really going to work for us. Like they kind of, I think they gave up on it too early, but
agreed.
It doesn't matter. That's the decision they made. So they're like, okay, now all of these things are going to exist just as one-off stories. And that'll allow us to tell whatever story we want to tell and link these if we want and not if we don't. Okay, cool. Go all in on that. But the idea of like bringing back the Snyder Cut now implies that there is the possibility that this combined universe could still exist, especially if people clamor for it hard enough, the way they did with the release the Snyder Cut hashtag. So like, who the fucking knows if DC even has a strategy right now, which is really disappointing to me because most of my favorite characters are DC.
If there ever were a case study to show how important having a producer is, DCEU is that case study, because Marvel has Kevin Feige, who just is like, no, this is the line, this is the timeline, this is the continuity, here's the characters, here's how they're gonna shit. There were things introduced in the Marvel universe that took 7 years to come to fruition. Like they dropped things into the universe in fucking Iron Man 1 that didn't pay off until fucking Endgame, completely unrelated to they've done such a great job of setting up a world that people feel like they're like, oh shit, I could do timelines for 13, 15 different movies of all different characters and tell you how they all interact and where you see the different things. Whereas DC was like, well, we've cast another Batman, and this time it's It's this guy, and he's younger, but this time it's older. But he's not the same Batman, but he's the Batman from this world, but not the same Batman you saw in this, but a different Joker than the one you saw there. Although it's played by the same guy, it's a different Joker than the one you saw in this movie, and it's just a fucking mess. But we're not here to talk about that. That is for the Superpod Hero Cast to talk about. That is on them to dive into that world. We are here to talk about Rachel getting married. So that being said, hello and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast trailer edition. I'm your host, Michael Veit.
I'm Caleb, and that might be a record for longest we've gone in the episode without introducing it.
10 minutes, so that's pretty good, actually. So we're here to talk about our upcoming episode on the movie Rachel Getting Married. And for those of you who are longtime listeners or watchers of the podcast, if you read the description for this movie, you were probably like, what? You guys are covering this movie? I mean, you probably didn't hear of it. I'm going to guess. You probably never heard of this movie. But you're probably going to be like, I guess, but like, Annie Hathaway's in it. Like, she's very famous, like royal, she's like celebrity royalty at this point.
Yeah. And, we have tried to do this month of episodes that correlates to, the ending of WandaVision and the launch of, Falcon and Winter Soldier, which as of the release of this trailer episode, that starts tomorrow. So, we're really excited about that. And so we were looking for movies that at least featured, if not starred, Sebastian Stan and Anthony Mackie. So last week with Sebastian Stan playing just a total shitbag and
terrible,
killing it in We Have Always Lived in the Castle. And next week, of course, we'll be talking about Anthony Mackie starring as a scientist saving the Earth in Io. But as a great little bridge between them, there had been an outstanding request that we didn't cover in our listener request month, largely because it was from someone who doesn't listen to the podcast, and that's my wife, Ellen. Who just wanted a chance to watch a movie she liked for once.
Yeah, that was good.
But she had a legitimate I think that this movie kind of flew under the radar. I think that probably a lot of your listeners wouldn't have heard of it, and it's a really good movie, and you should talk about it. And it just so happens that Sebastian Stan is in it for all of 2 minutes, and he has 3 lines and they're great, but then that's it. So we move on from Sebastian Stan very quickly, and so it worked. And yeah, this is not a normal movie for us. It is a much heavier movie and a much heavier subject matter than we normally like to get into. It's as I was walking out of the room, Ellen's like, "Yeah, this is going to be a hard one to make jokes about." I was like, "We'll find a way.
Don't worry, we'll figure that out." But I think we did a good job. I think we did good.
You'll also hear us talk about just the things that we appreciated about it as a film. And as much as we've kind of spent 3 years, we're on year 4 now, we have spent a solid 3 years talking a lot of shit. And every now and then it's refreshing to get into just some genuine film criticism and how a movie does things well, and not just you hear this fucking guy said, what an asshole.
That's a snake coming out of a toilet. What the fuck?
You got him right in the dick.
Yeah. And this movie is only available on demand. So you do have to rent or buy this movie. However you do that, whether it's streaming or physical media. Is that a thing anymore? Maybe? I don't know. I suppose you could buy it.
There's one Blockbuster in in and around Oregon somewhere, and
I think it's Alaska.
Yeah, well, no, there was one in Oregon.
Oh yeah,
for sure. And I don't know if it's still there, but there was a local non-chain video rental store in the Berkeley area when we lived out there.
Oh yeah, well, I guess you have Redbox, but I doubt that Redbox is stocking this movie.
That would be interesting. That would be a hell of a find. Yeah. 2008 Annie Hathaway drama.
Go through and be like, I'm going to rent Tenet. No, I don't want to rent that. Oh, Rachel Getting Married. Of course, this is up there with this movie. This came out 13 years ago. Why would I not?
I heard about that on the Never Heard of It podcast.
Right. So this movie does have to rent or purchase this film. It is roughly $3 or $4 to rent, and I think it's roughly $12 to $14 to purchase. So if you're an Anne Hathaway fan or a Jonathan Demme fan, this movie is directed by Jonathan Demme, who we mentioned in the episode, directed films like Silence of the Lambs and Philadelphia. So if you are a fan of those and you're like, oh shit, those are great movies, maybe you pick this one up. It is a little different than what you're probably used to. It is not a standard film. But if you are the type of person that watches the movies after we announce them, go ahead and check that out. But if you're a Patreon subscriber, by the way, patreon.com/nightshiftradio, you can actually have access to the full episode right now. So if you actually head to patreon.com/nightshiftradio, link down below, you can subscribe at either the $5 or the $10 tier to get access to the full version of this episode, which is available on the Patreon. If you subscribe to the $10 tier, you're actually going to be able to see concept art from our new upcoming show, Show 17 for Humans, our new animated series led by Ethan Kosak. But you'll actually start to see concept art of one of the characters, the host of the talk show, Show 17.
Very excited.
So definitely head over there and check that out on the Patreon for subscribing. And of course, it supports us. But there are many free ways to support us, one of which is by subscribing. So if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. If you are listening on your podcast player of choice, subscribing and leaving a rating and review is literally the most helpful thing you could possibly do for us. Hell, I would love for you to subscribe to the Patreon, but you leaving a rating and review in your podcast player, specifically Apple Podcasts, is way more helpful to us than that. Like, that is a big push for us. Like, absolutely leave a rating and review. We would really appreciate that. And of course, you can follow us on social media at the Nahoy Podcast on both Twitter and Instagram. But Caleb, where else would someone find us?
Well, if you want to remember the name of this movie so that you can go and find it in your local Redbox, just head on over to thenahoyts.com, where we have our upcoming schedule of episodes with links to trailers and where you can find the movie streaming if available, in this case not. And of course, our contact form where we want to hear from you, how you think we're doing, how you think we're not doing, or like movies that you want to hear us talk about. We will always take a listener request. I think we only skipped one just because it was a little bit too heavy for the show. We couldn't make any jokes about it, but that was a very much the exception. And
the other one was we legit could not find it.
Yes,
it wasn't even digitally available.
Which, if it becomes available, we will circle back to that because it looked awesome. So we want to do it. So let us know what you want to hear us talk about, and we will do that in an episode.
Yeah. So thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us for this trailer episode, and we will see you on Sunday.
Constance!